Go get him, Brody.
Poker for Pound Pups vlog number 2 coming at you from Lucky Chances. 3-5 with a $10 straddle under the gun. Let's get to it. First hand of the day, big slick offsuit, ace of spades, king of diamonds. Let's start the day well. We open to 35 and we get a couple callers. Flop comes out, king of hearts, 10 of spades, 5 of diamonds. We've got the best pair. We've got the best kicker. This board's great for our range. We bet 50 into 116 and everybody folds. They know I've got it. I know I've got it. This is a great omen for hopefully a great day of poker. Love those suited connectors. I've got 8-7 of clubs under the gun in the straddle. 3 people limp, including the button and the big blind. Now, I could just check my option and see a free flop, but I'd much prefer to have an uncapped range and not go multi-way in early position. So I settled on $65 for my raise, and only the button hangs around for the flop. Ace 9-5 rainbow. We do have a backdoor club draw and a gutter, so not too much, but the flop is great for our range. We're going to have a lot more aces than he does, so I'm going to try and take it down. I bet 115 with this gutter ball representing the ace, and thankfully we take it down. In retrospect, I think 60 to 80 probably gets the job done here as well. If he's got an ace, he's probably calling either of these bets. So why am I just overexposing myself with a sizing of 115? I don't love it. Nevertheless, we take it down. Good start continues. We keep getting the clubs. Ace 8 suited in the low jack. 2 people limp. We want to bump it up with the suited ace. We make it 55 to go. The hijack calls. He was the straddle in this particular hand, so some bad luck there as he's been a lot more passive and he's right behind us. So that's not ideal. And one of the early position limpers calls as well. Probably should play this a little bit more on the conservative side, going multi-way. Let's see a flop. We get a hideous 7-3-2 rainbow with 1 club. The good news is we've got 2 overcards, and maybe our opponents are just going to put us on aces or kings and are going to fold out their weaker pocket pairs, or maybe they've got Broadway cards and they just can't continue. It checks to me. And, aggression's worked out twice so far, so let's try it one more time. I fire 120 to fold out all Broadway cards, all those smaller medium pairs that missed, and pretty quickly we get called by the tight hijack player. Early position folds, but, the caller has been playing face up, passive all day. I do not put him on some sort of straight draw here, so we're probably well behind, likely to an overpair that wasn't quite good enough in his mind to raise me pre-flop. So it's probably time to shut it down unless we improve quite a bit on this turn. So pre-flop, when I'd done my raise, the hijack said, feeling lucky? So that's the first time he's talked pre-flop, so that was interesting. Then we made a $120 flop bet, which he called. And then when the turn comes, the 10 of diamonds, he checks out of turn. And so I've got just alarm bells going off everywhere. I check as well, making his check stand. We see a 5 of hearts on the river, which is also no help. And I think it's time to just wave the white flag. He bets. It could have been $80, could have been $100. To be honest, he could have bet $20 and I probably would have folded. I throw my cards into the muck and get out of there. Let's move on to the next hand. Our cameraman slacks off and we join this hand a little bit late. The pre-flop action that I'll catch up on. Sitting on the button with ace queen offsuit, 2 people limp, and I make it $55 to go. 1 player calls an early position. This particular player's been loose in chasing things all day long, and if he doesn't get there by the river, he's been really tight. So he wants to make it later in the hand. If he's got a really good hand, he's going to play it face up, and if he misses, he's just going to get out of the way. So pretty easy to read, pretty easy to play against, probably going to be harder to bluff on earlier streets, and then easier to bluff on later streets. Flop comes out basically perfectly. King, Jack, 10, 2 clubs. We flop the nuts on a super wet board. And before I can figure out how much I want to bet, our opponent leads for $50. Beautiful. I could slow play this and give the opponent a chance to hang himself or to catch up. But as I said pre-flop, this opponent has shown a propensity to pay to see cards early in the hand before getting tighter later on. So rather than letting him catch up, I want to make him pay to see. There are 2 clubs out there for a flush draw. Any queen is open-ended. There are a bunch of Broadway 2 pairs, and there are also a bunch of pair plus straight draws out there. So There's just a lot that's going to call, so I bump it up to 225, and pretty quickly he makes the call. Hoping for a brick, and we get it. The three of diamonds couldn't have been any better. The pot's almost 600 bucks. We've got less than a pot size bet. Our opponent checks, but has shown an aptitude to pay to see, so we go all in. Doesn't take him long to fold. He shows the queen of clubs for open-ended. He may have had a flush draw as well, although I think that's doubtful. I think he probably pays when he's got a flush draw and a straight draw there. So I'm going to guess he probably had a pair plus that open-ended. Maybe we missed some value here. Maybe we fast played it, but I think if he has two pair or has a combo draw that we're getting paid off. The momentum is there. The cards are coming, and I get black pocket aces. Hey-o! Now, some of you might be a little bit more exploitative with your sizing pre-flop. I try to keep this aspect of my game pretty consistent, usually about 3x plus dead money when I'm in position and 4x plus the dead money when I'm out of position. So with one limper plus the straddle, still to act, we're going to make it $45 this time around. We get one caller who limped an earlier position. We're heads up to a flop in position with pocket aces. Let's go. 7-3 deuce rainbow. It's awful for our range. The opponent checks, and from a balance perspective, I might consider checking here as we have very few netted hands other than maybe pocket sevens. But I've got the best starting hand in poker. I want to charge all of his middling pairs or any draws that he has. I bet 35 into 101, and he check raises me to 125. Okay, time to start thinking. I'm definitely not folding yet. Based on him limp calling pre-flop, he could be doing this with maybe a suited 5-4. Maybe he's just putting me on ace-king and ace-queen and thinking that on this board texture I'm missing, so trying to protect a vulnerable overpair. He could be doing this with a set. Not really sure. There are a lot of possibilities. I could raise, but if I raise, I only think he's going to call with hands that beat me with sets. So I think it's probably better off calling, playing in position. If he wants to continue, overvaluing an overpair, let him go ahead and do it. Let me know in the comments, how would you play this check raise? So I stick in the call and the turn brings a 9. I think if he'd flopped a set, he would continue betting here after I showed strength and called his check raise, as I'm showing strength. But instead he checks back, leading me to think that he didn't flop a set and I'm likely still good here. So I bet again at about 1/3 pot. And he double check raises me to 330. What is going on? All right, back into the tank I go. I don't see him doing this with open-ended, nor with another overpair like tens or jacks. And since he didn't continue leading on the turn, I think sevens, threes, and deuces are unlikely too, which means the only thing that makes sense is pocket nines that happened to turn a set. I think once I called his check raise, he decided to wave the white flag and check the turn, and then he hit and got tricky all over again. I absolutely hate it, but I'm going to trust my read this time, and I let the aces go.
Dirty. You have pocket nines. You just hit a 2-outer. You have pocket nines. 100%. 100% you have pocket nines.
I'm not sure how I would play that hand differently if I got to play it again. Do I come over the top again on the flop? Do I just check the flop back because the range doesn't hit me? I'm really not sure. So I'm curious, how would you have played this hand and where do you think I went wrong? Please let me know in the comments. I'd much rather be in a better situation next time that this happens. Either way, I either got my aces cracked or I got bluffed off of the best hand. So I was in a little bit of a mini tilt, and I think that impacted my next hand against the same player. In the cutoff, I've got 6-4 of diamonds, 3 people limp. I'm a little bit tilted. This is a solid suited gapper to bet with. I bump it up to 60 bucks and get called by the same player who we think cracked our aces previously. Thankfully, we get a piece of the board with bottom pair on queen 7-4, and we've got a backdoor diamond draw. I'm going to try and represent ace queen or an overpair and see if we can just take this down. If not, hopefully we improve on the turn or the river. We bet 85 and quickly get called. Uh-oh. Our equity improves on the 2 of diamonds turn. So now we have a pair plus a flush draw. Our opponent checks, and I want to keep the pressure on, hoping to just take it down. But in case he has a queen, we have outs. We've got another 4, another 6, and all the diamonds. So I bet again, about half pot, firing 155 into 321. And what do you know? He reaches into his bag of tricks and pulls out another check raise. I'm tired of feeling pushed around. I'm tilted. I have outs, so I insta call. At the time, I thought it put me all in, but I didn't realize that I still had 165 or so behind. Irrespective of how good or lousy a play it was to just call, I hate that I didn't think it through before acting. We go to a river with 165 or so dollars behind. I'm just hoping for a 6, another 4. Hopefully a diamond shows up. Instead, we get the 8 of clubs. As expected, he shoves all in for my last 165 or 166, whatever it is. I'm obviously getting great pot odds here, so I start looking for bluffs. What would he have called $85 on the flop with that I was beating? I try and think it through. Maybe 5-6 is the only bluff that he has. And then I realized 5-6 got there with the 8 on the river. So the absolute worst hand that I can think that he has beats me. Despite the great pot odds, I fold. I don't think a pair of 4s is ever good here. Pot odds be damned. I cut my losses and save 165 bucks. After the hand is over, he shows 7-7 for what I think is another set, and he is just absolutely wrecking me today. Ugh. In hindsight, going back to that turn where he check raised me to 355, it was only 200 more to me. And the more I look at it, it was actually an okay call, because calling 200 for what would be a pot of over 1,000 with an additional 165 to go on top of that means I need only 16, 17% equity. And in looking at the hand, I had 18% equity. I would think that he might do this with just a pair of queens sometimes. So if that was the case, then I was in even better shape. Regardless, though, if I make the wrong decisions because my read was wrong or I had a bad thought process, at least that's something that I can live with and learn through. But if I just make heated decisions because I'm frustrated and tilted, I'm never going to be a winning player. So I've got to do better than this. Come on, Wes. All right, so we've hit some turbulence, but it's time to just reset. We add on to our stack. We're reloaded. We're ready to go. We're ready to overcome this tilt and make a comeback. In the cutoff, we get the jack of diamonds and the jack of puppy toes. That's a great hand to just flop a set and double up. So let's play some good poker. Come on. Our nemesis limps, and we make it 45 to go. The big blind calls, and our nemesis call, and we're going 3 ways to a flop. Now, one thing to note is they've been checking down each other once they've ended up heads up, including the nut flush. So it almost feels like I'm playing 1-on-2, but at least I'm in position. I've got a monster hand. Let's hit this flop and let's double up. Come on. Jack of spades, 10 of diamonds, 8 of hearts. We flop top set. Let's go. With that said, it's a connected board, so we are not going to slow play this at all. Once it gets to us, we are going to fire. But before I can even settle on a sizing, the big blind donk leads for $80, and our nemesis makes the call. What is going on? This is beautiful. I try and think things through before I act. So the possible hands that they could have include weaker sets, 2 pairs, and I think there are going to be a lot of pair plus straight draws. Someone could have flopped a straight with something like 9-7 suited, but I think that's pretty unlikely. And even in the worst case scenario, I still have a ton of equity. I've got about 800 left, and there aren't many runouts that I like unless they happen to pair the board. So I want to bump this up and get the money in good as soon as I can. We make it 220, which will create a stack to pot ratio on the turn of less than 1-to-1. If they just call, hopefully we get a clean turn and we get it in good. But there's always that possibility that a 2 pair or a weaker set is going to shove. So that's what I'm hoping for. And it doesn't take too long for the big blind to announce he is all in. He's got about 510, so another 370 on top of my raise. Someone's definitely getting coolered here, but I think I've got to be in the lead 9 times out of 10. And then our nemesis goes into the tank for a while. While he's tanking, the big blind, his buddy, says, Good luck to me, and our nemesis folds shortly thereafter. It was probably nothing, but it was still a little bit suspicious. So next time that they're both at the same table, I don't think I'm going to play against them. Nevertheless, we've got pocket jacks, we've got top set, and we can't get our money in fast enough. If he happened to play 9-7 and flopped a straight, good for him, but we're not folding a flop top set here. We snap call and announce pocket jacks, and we are all in for over a $1,300 pot. The turn is a queen, which is probably the last card we wanted to see. Now, any of those hands that happen to have a 9 in it are now beating us. And the river is a 9, putting us straight on the board. We show our counterfeit top set in disgust, and our opponent actually curses even louder than I did, showing queen 9 of diamonds for a flopped nut straight against my top set. What a gross action flop, and an even grosser run out for him. With that said, I still had 34% equity, so it's not like I was drawing dead. Both sides avoid the cooler and are disappointed by the result, and this is just how the day's gone. Started with so much promise, and it just has not gone the way that we wanted it to. Queen Jack offsuit and the low jack. That's going to be a fold at most aggressive tables, but as you've seen, I've not been getting 3-bet much at all. I'm a little bit tilted. I make it 45 to go after one person limps. Nemesis 2.0, who just flopped a straight and chopped with us, calls from the small blind, as does the limper from middle position. We hit top pair on Jack 10-6 Rainbow. Multi-way in general, I need to slow down a little bit more. But when we hit top pair and we're a little bit tilted and the board is fairly connected, we need to bet it. We're going to charge the 10s, the 6s, other pocket pairs, and any gutter balls that might be out there. And if we get raised, we only have a queen kicker, so we can just let it go if we get raised. We make it $50, and Nemesis 2.0 calls. Mid position folds, and my heart is just starting to sink already. I've seen this movie before. I know how it goes. We do get a good turn card, the 2 of diamonds, so none of the draws got there. It shouldn't really make any new 2 pairs, so whoever was leading on the flop is likely still ahead on the turn. Still not 100% sure where I'm at, but he checks. We're in position. We've got top pair. It's a draw-heavy board, so I want to charge all those draws. I bet 90 into 246, and he continues. The river king of spades isn't great for our hand, and he's got a lot of hands that just improve, whether it be king 10 or an open-ended straight draw. And when he checks, I just don't see that we're going to get value from much worse. I certainly don't want to get check raised again. I've got showdown value, so we decide to just check. He shows 10-9. We show our jack, and we scoop a medium-sized pot that is very much needed. You've probably noticed that every hand has been 3, 5, 10 so far, with a $10 straddle being under the gun. Well, some sad news. The least experienced player at the table, who'd been seated to my right, finally got knocked out, and he was replaced by a nit who decided he didn't want to do the under the gun straddle. So rather than there being $18 in the pot when it gets to me with ace queen offsuit, there's only $8. So I changed my opening size from 35 down to 20, and that's going to play a critical factor in this hand. I make it 20. Nemesis 2, who's now moved directly behind me, calls. The button calls, and one of the blinds calls. So we're going 4 ways to a flop. Ace 7-7 Rainbow. Pretty darn good flop for me. I want to get value from all the weaker aces out there and some of those pocket pairs that just decided to call. I value bet $30 into 76. Nemesis 2.0 calls, the button calls, and one of the early position players folds. The turn brings in the jack, which means one of the hands I've been trying to get value from just went ahead of me, and I'm still behind any hand with a 7 in it, like 7-6 or 8-7. I'm still going to have the best hand here a lot of the time, but I don't know that I'm going to get 3 streets of value from 2 players, and out of position, I think I need to just check this back. But in the moment, we bet again, this time sizing up to $60. Still not a huge chunk when the pot is 166, but Nemesis 2.0 basically snap calls and the button gets out of the way. The river 4 of hearts really shouldn't change much. I value bet one last time, this time for 120 into 286, and almost instantly Nemesis 2.0 raises me to 260. So this means I need to call $140 to win a pot of 806. So I really only need to be good about 17% of the time, or 1 out of 6, for it to be a profitable call. I've got a really strong hand, but in reality, There are no draws out there. The flop was ace-7-7 rainbow. There's no straight. There's no flush. He could have 8-7. He could have 7-6. Despite the amazing pot odds, I don't see him raising me with a weaker ace. I think this just has to be a fold. Unfortunately, in the moment, I decide my hand is just too good given the price, and we see the bad news. He decided to play 7-3 offsuit in middle position. Okay, I should have realized that people would play a wider range because the pot was cheaper to get into, and should have just played passively considering I'm out of position and people would call with literally any 2 cards. This is on me. I got to get better at shifting gears when things change. Shame on me, lesson learned. We'll do better next time.
That was not good at all. Not a good session. We lost $1,111. Not ideal. I'm gonna need a second job if I keep playing like that. On my way out, I asked the Nemesis 1.0 if he had it on the hand where I folded aces, and he said he had 9s. So it felt good to get that one right. But I think I punted a lot more than I needed to on the 6-4 hand. Worst of all, though, was that ace-queen hand. Just horrible timing with the new guy not wanting to straddle. I should have just realized people would play literally any 2 cards. And on an ace-7-7 flop, when people will play any 2, I have a marginal hand. Marginal hand. Brady, what are you doing? All right, let's go. Come on. Definitely an interesting day of poker. Hit like, hit subscribe, and help out the dogs. Thanks, y'all.